Hey everyone, I'm Kate Hatter, Director of Digital Marketing here at Hi10. Today I'm sitting down with David Lowe, our Director of Strategy and Analytics. We've had a lot of honest conversations with some clients lately. They're feeling the pressure after Q1 didn't go their way.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of the same things from some of our clients. They're asking a lot of the same questions. What is this spend getting me? What kind of ROI can I expect to see from marketing? Q1 was a challenge. Business is down. Some business owners feel as though they need to cut back on marketing. So totally valid reactions right now. A lot of uncertainty in the market and a lot to discuss today.
Absolutely. When the market feels uncertain, I think marketing is usually one of the first things on the chopping block. Today, I want to unpack that a little bit with you, David, and discuss why ultimately that's a wrong move to achieve your goals or, navigate these waters of uncertain times.
Yeah, I think we've got to be real with ourselves that Q1 really didn't go the way most people planned. It saw softer numbers, longer sales cycles, and really tighter budgets across a lot of our client partners and the industries that they operate in.
Yeah, and I think that the sad reality is that this may get worse before it gets better overall. I think that's on top of discussing cutting budget. That's what makes these conversations difficult, is we don't ultimately know what the market's going to hold. And it may, the next day may not be as sunny. So what I want to dive deeper into is, why do you think marketing is the first on the chopping block when we talk about budget cuts?
It's a really great question. Of course, our conversations with clients kind of span, but one thing that certainly does happen when marketing dollars go down is, not only does cost decline, but also brand visibility, built up momentum in the marketplace, and really future revenue potential. A lot of our clients talk about and are interested in, of course, growing their share. When we cut budgets, we really damage a lot of our momentum to that end.
Yeah, I think marketing's on that chopping block, especially for a non-marketing person, is even if you're tracking your campaigns and have a strong understanding of where your budget is allocated, it feels very black and white. We are actively spending money on a daily basis, and we're not necessarily seeing that money or feeling that money come back in. But what I think marketing budgets can be sometimes is less about costs and more about risk management, which is what we're going to be focusing on for today's conversation. There's an analogy that I've been using frequently. So imagine you're running a marathon. My little brother just got done running a marathon. He said around that halfway point, the 13-mile mark is when you're really starting to feel the burn. Imagine you're exhausted. You have a long way to go, but you stop and you sit on a bench. Even if that rest, feels good, it doesn't make the finish line any closer.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When you're, running and you slow walks, take a break, maybe at like a red light or something, you are still moving forward. But if you stop, you're completely kind of ruining your momentum. Starting on back up is a lot harder. I used to ride my bike a lot, not so much of a cyclist these days, but it's a perfect metaphor when, you're moving up a hill or something, that moving forward, that constant forward motion is really critical. And if you go to start from a cold start, it's just, everything gets more difficult. And I think in the business case, more difficult can often also mean more expensive.
Yeah, I like that metaphor too, is we're not necessarily stopping, even if we're slowing, say we're going up a hill, we're simply changing gears. Maybe with our marketing tactics, our operations, let's get some new tools in there. We're not necessarily freezing or stopping completely. Ultimately, that doesn't help us achieve our goals, and it's probably not helping us address the real issues affecting our customers, affecting our industry. I think we've seen a lot of businesses lose traction. I think especially if you're, second within market share, or you're one of those, smaller entities, is your competitors are going to stay in the game. Maybe it's more of a question of scale, or as they say, a change is as good as a rest, than it is completely getting out of the game.
Yeah, I think this is really where kind of pressure testing is coming in. So is the downturn unique to your business? Is it something that everyone's facing. I think a lot of the kind of simple questions like that are really important to answer and consider.
Yeah, I think what's rewarding about our work too is when we have these difficult conversations, maybe we don't have a great meeting with a client because we get the bad news. Sales are stagnant, or we saw, a huge dip. I think February was really hard for a lot of our e-commerce companies across different industries and models. But it's rewarding to then, I think, turn around, do some research, look at competitors and see that they aren't alone in this space. So what I kind of challenge our clients and our team to really look at is when we're talking about cutting marketing spend is who is it benefiting from us cutting spend? If cutting our spend doesn't clearly solve another business problem, if it doesn't benefit your customers, if it's not improving you in some other way, if it's simply we feel like we can't spend any more money because things aren't going as expected, it's probably not worth the loss of momentum and the other risks that accumulate as you turn that budget off.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize as well that it's not always the budget that is the issue. It's maybe more about how that budget is being spent.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's where the fun conversations with clients and our team come into play too, is how do we change? How do we innovate with that spend rather than isolating our budget completely by removing the channel or keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So my advice is if the old way isn't working, then maybe it's time to rewire the system. We're talking about innovation, big and small.
Yeah, and I think that can take a lot of, and historically here has taken a lot of different forms, whether it's a new website, better CRM, optimizing, auditing, and tightening the sales process, smarter paid strategy. It's always, it can be tough to see a client pause an ad spend when a competitor in a downturn or kind of in a bull market, when competitors double down, and ultimately, that client partner is going to lose market share as a result of that spend differential.
Or what I think is really fun in our industry when we see innovation is when the main industry, what isn't working anymore, then you have a new business model, a new company that comes in and takes not just your market, but really changes customer expectations and almost hits like a reset on your industry. So if you cannot do that from an operational standpoint, there are easier ways to replicate that on a smaller scale. Just like you said, David, that can be as simple as, new training for a salesperson, a new tool or technology to make the day-to-day easier. Two, I think we often find is it's not just the industries are changing, costs are changing. Usually things are more expensive, especially if you think about you have to pause, you're not investing. And, if you're cutting your budget by something crazy like 70% or more, you're going to have that much more sticker shock when you do re-enter this market. And like I said, I think that's always disheartening when expectations have changed, because if your plan is to pause the activities, pause the budget, we're waiting for things to get better, you go to restart. What you had planned to do previously is no longer going to work for you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think maybe we could chat a little bit about ROI. If you're not seeing it, is it actually not there, or is there a chance that you're not measuring it the right way?
Yeah, I have also kind of used this analogy too. I think it's like taking a vitamin. Is you don't necessarily feel the difference, walking around every single day. You're not really aware of the health benefits because you are actively benefiting from them and you really don't know any difference. But if you stop taking that vitamin, then you're really going to feel it. I, for example, stopped taking a vitamin D vitamin the other day, and man, did that make me feel old. But I was like, why is my energy just so crappy all of a sudden? It's because of that stinking vitamin.
I think that's why, and anytime we're talking about spend and ROI discussions, that transparency is really critical. If your marketing partner isn't helping, you measure the impact clearly. If you're not feeling like what you're seeing on the piece of paper matches what your business is experiencing from a bottom line perspective, then pretty clearly time to demand better insights and greater transparency.
I agree. And I don't necessarily want to say like, well, if you don't feel or see your ROI, you're, not measuring it correctly. I think more what we mean is look at them in a different perspective. So a really good example of that is we had a client who does have a little bit of stagnation, especially from February to March and Q1 of this year. Since we're not seeing as much sales growth and able to rely on some of those metrics to make decisions, what we've really pivoted to is the rate of growth within each of their product categories. So that helps us better inform where we need to allocate budget, where we need additional research to build a different perspective or perform, a better experience on their behalf. It's not always about less marketing. Sometimes, and what it usually is, it's about better marketing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Kate, circling back to kind of the top of our discussion, you're coming out of the first quarter into the second, and you're still feeling pressured. What do you think business owners ought to do as they look to the second quarter and beyond?
I would say first, don't panic cut. So don't immediately, bring your stakeholders to the table and like, what can we slash? Who needs money the most? I think what is a good sign is when our, partners or clients come and talk to us about budget cuts is hopefully they see us as people that could assist them in making that decision or arming them with the correct information to make an educated choice. But ultimately, ask better questions, not simply stopping with, why aren't we seeing sales, but why isn't my marketing working? It could be as simple as maybe we need to try a new channel or a different audience. Let us collect some data on that to assist you. I think back to our earlier point, that's really where innovation and new thinking can benefit us. I would also recommend don't get out of the game. The question should not be, why am I marketing at all? Why do we need to market? I think is ironic to receive, especially if we've historically gotten really, really great results. So maybe that's also like a return to what worked before. Maybe it's not replicating that success, but why did that work well for us? And how can we do that now?
Yeah, and I think if any of this is hitting home, probably a good opportunity to audit what you're doing today and ask some of those foundational questions and maybe make some changes as a result of that analysis.
If you'd like help doing that, of course, reach out to High 10. I always enjoy having these conversations with clients. I know this can be a really scary time for businesses, is we're not just talking about economic, not even uncertainties. We've seen tariffs hit a lot of industries, a lot of models in varying degrees. We don't necessarily know when that is going to get better and the long-term effects. A very different social and political climate for consumer expectations as well. But we'd love to help you rethink your strategy and not just survive in this down market, but ultimately thrive in 2025.
Visit high10digital.com to learn how you can thrive in 2025.